Jana Lynne Sanchez, Democratic candidate for the 6th Congressional District. Thank you so much for joining us. I
Thank
guess
you.
you're welcome. And the first question really is, why are you running?
I'm running because I believe our democracy is at grave risk, and because I want to help create a healthy, prosperous, and equitable future for us all. I want to represent people like my family who've worked hard for everything they have. That means we need better health care, better jobs, and a stronger infrastructure.
And why do you think people should vote for you over the 22 other candidates in this race?
I think people can relate to someone like me. I grew up very poor in this district. Nonetheless, I was able to go to college, not only because I worked hard, but because of the people in the community who supported me, because of amazing public school teachers, and because I benefited from programs like federal financial aid. I understand the struggles that people are facing. I face them. And I am from this community. It's my family, it's my home, it's my community.
And you said something before. Why do you think democracy is at risk?
I think we've seen a number of Washington politicians who are more focused on extreme ideology, on holding on to power at any cost, and to lining the pockets of their wealthy donors. They're more concerned about those things than they are about meeting the needs, the real needs of Texans.
And you mentioned some of the things: healthcare, jobs, infrastructure. Are those your three top priorities?
Absolutely. The focus is on healthcare, getting the vaccine rolled out, on jobs. We need jobs where people can make a decent living, and we need infrastructure because that also creates great jobs. But it also means we can drive safely from one point to the other without worrying about damage to our car. And it means we have a future, a future that is fueled by green energy, for instance, at least to a part. I think that's a very important investment we need to make in our economy and in our people right now.
You mentioned the COVID vaccine. How do you think the rollout is?
I think that we're doing a great job on the rollout. It's always can go faster. We can always get more people. I think that I think generally speaking, we're doing a great job. If you compare how we're doing to Europe, for instance, they've been a bit slow in rolling out the vaccine. So I think overall we're doing well. I'd like to see more people want to take the vaccine.
And what about the COVID relief bill that passed? Did you support that? And do you think there needs to be more?
I absolutely supported that bill. I think that it puts money in the pockets of people who will then go out and spend that money and create growth and jobs in our economy. It also does things like reduce the premiums for people who are buying their healthcare policies on the exchange. It also invests in small businesses so they can keep people employed. I absolutely support it. I don't know whether we need more or not. I think the focus will be in the short term, or maybe in the medium term, on getting this infrastructure bill passed.
And there have been even some Democrats who are a little leery about that legislation and the price tag. What's your thought on that?
It is certainly a large price tag. My concern is not so much with the amount, because I believe that investment is past due. We really need to make this investment, but how we pay for it. When President Trump began his term, a Republican controlled Congress passed a very large tax break for corporations and the wealthiest Americans. I think some rollback of that tax cut as being proposed now is a great idea. I'm not in favor of some of the proposals I've heard, such as a per mile tax to help fund highway systems. I don't believe in that. I think it's regressive. I don't think people should have to pay per mile to travel. But I would like to make sure that however the money is spent, that we're not paying twice for things. things. I don't want to see more toll roads built. We're paying on the front end and on the back end in that case. I want to see direct investment in our communities and in our failing bridges and roads.
With regards to the tax increases, um, obviously there has been some criticism, mostly by Republicans, that if you start increasing taxes now when you want to increase the amount of jobs that are out there, isn't that going to hurt that effort?
So first of all, it's not a tax increase. It's returning some of the tax break that was given to corporations and to the wealthiest Americans under the Trump administration, a tax break that did not create the jobs that it said it was going to create. So I think it's very important that we not talk about this as a tax increase, but a reversal of a tax break that was not equitable.
But it is increasing back to what it was before if
No, it's
President Biden
actually
gets his way, right?
No, he's not proposing to get rid of the entire tax break. He is proposing to reduce some of the tax break. We still would have the lowest corporate tax rate of any industrialized nation.
Let me ask you about another issue that obviously we've seen here in Texas and make a lot of headlines, and that is what we're seeing at the southern border, and the number of not only unaccompanied minors, but others who are coming in. And what is your thought on that? And what do you think the solution is?
So I don't have a solution. I think that this is going to be a very complex problem to resolve. I think it's important to understand that that the Biden administration came into what was a very difficult situation, a problem created by the last administration by illegal and unethical treatment of immigrants. I personally don't have a solution. I am hopeful that the Biden administration will come up with a solution that works. One of the things I heard in the last day or so that I thought was a great idea was to allow the asylum interviewers, I can't remember what they're called exactly, to decide at that moment whether someone is actually facing a legitimate fear of persecution rather than making them wait to see an asylum judge, for instance. I mean, there are a lot of solutions like that that need to be worked through. But at the very heart of this, we have to get to that we have to solve the underlying problem. Why are so many people trying to come across our border? And I think that's very important. That's going to be a long-term solution that I know that Vice President Harris is in charge of coming up with a solution, working with our partners in Central America and in Mexico. Whatever solution we come up with, it has to respect the human rights of the people who are claiming asylum, and we have to respect international law, and we have to respect our law.
And where are you on the HR 1 that has been proposed, which is election reform in Congress? I know that the Democrats in the House have approved that. It went to the Senate, and there is some opposition there, and the Senate obviously is 50-50. So where are you on that?
So when I talk about our democracy being at grave risk, I think what you see is around the country an unprecedented assault on voting rights, an unprecedented orchestrated attempt to suppress voters. And normally these are voters of color from disenfranchised communities. So it's very important that we reverse that immediately. HR 1 goes a long way to doing that. It also reduces the impact of large corporate donors who are attempting to buy our democracy. So I think HR 1 is absolutely essential that we pass it, and that we use this moment to regroup and say every vote counts, every vote matters, every person has a right to be represented. So I think it's absolutely essential that we pass HR 1 and that we work to shore up our democracy and the underlying principle that every vote matters and that every person gets to vote.
Do you have any concerns that the legislation federalizes elections instead of basically having state by state? It would federalize it more.
No, I'm not concerned about that. I'm concerned about states that are attempting right now. There are quite a few of them that are attempting to subvert democracy by removing the right of people to vote.
What specifically about the state bills do you have an issue with?
So there are a number of states that are proposing new methods of delivery or of determining the electoral vote by giving by changing the way that they distribute the electoral votes, and that's designed to disproportionately give rural voters a stronger voice per person. So they're taking away the one vote per person um, rule, but we also see across the country, including in Texas, efforts to shorten hours for voting so that people who might be working late or might be working two jobs can't get to the polls, make it harder for people to get ballots, making it harder for people to vote by mail. We're in the middle still of a pandemic. People need to be able to vote by mail so they can stay safe and healthy. All of these are designed to limit the power of urban voters who are voting against Republicans. I mean, that's basically what the point of these bills is.
I want to ask you about police reform legislation. The House passed that. And where do you come down? I know one of the issues, I think there's a lot of support for police reforms and additional police training. I know one of the issues that there's disagreement on is what's called qualified immunity, taking that away from officers. In other words, making them liable for their actions. Where do you fall on that issue?
I believe we should eliminate court-created qualified immunity.
And what do you have any concerns that this may hurt a city or a county's ability to hire law enforcement officers?
I think ultimately, by having a system that is fair and equitable for all citizens, we will create a system by which police forces are able better to protect everyone in their community. If you get rid of or don't hire the people who are concerned about violating people's rights, then you will have a system which the vast majority of police officers are there to serve the community. So let's take away something that the court created as an unfair system to prevent people who have been wronged from suing and getting justice.
And my last question to you is on gun legislation. There have been a lot of calls since the mass shooting in Colorado, renewed calls for gun legislation.
Mhm.
Where are you on the Second Amendment and specifically more restrictions?
So I absolutely support the Second Amendment. I grew up shooting. I have a gun. However, there is nothing in most of the proposals that does anything to weaken the Second Amendment. We need, and I think the majority of Americans absolutely support, universal background checks. They support rules that keep guns out of the hands of violent and mentally unstable people. So those kind of rules are absolutely necessary, and also rules that prevent people who have been convicted of spousal abuse, for instance. They should not have guns. So I think there are a lot of things we can do that are in line with the Second Amendment, but that make us safer as Americans.
As you know, there's widespread disagreement on this issue. Do you think anything can be done? What would you be able to contribute to try to bring both sides together?
I think as somebody who grew up shooting, who owns a gun, I think most Americans, like me, believe that we need additional rules. I mean, I think that most people see this as a common sense issue. So I believe I could pull together people from the left and the right who maybe can't clearly see each other's perspective and come up with something that the vast majority of Americans, including Republicans and including gun owners, see as essential, which are stronger rules that protect our children, protect our schools, and protect our public places.
Jana Lynne Sanchez, thank you so much, candidate for the 6th Congressional District. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you.